Hi, everybody, and a very warm welcome to you. Welcome to the show. If you're an entrepreneur, influencer, or small business owner, today we're going to be talking the topical subject of crafting digital virality. And my special guest, who I'm going to introduce you to shortly, is waiting in the wings for us to actually share awesome tips and tricks when it comes to actually going viral and taking your business to market. So warm welcome to everybody. Let's begin the show. Okay, everybody. So my guest this morning is Mike Sharman, and he is from Retroviral. So Mike has made more brands go viral globally than any other agency in Africa without sweating that small fluff. His agency, Retroviral, offers value services to clients like RocoMamas, Russell Hobbs, Mnet, and of course, my all-time favorite, Nando's. His strategic thinking and big vision for developing campaigns to truly go viral sets him apart from the rest of the agency pack. So a very warm welcome to you, Mike. Welcome to the show. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Woohoo! Hello. How are you, Lucille?
I'm awesome. I'm really thrilled and excited to actually go through this interview today, because I know that I'm sitting down here with a thought leader and a genius of note when it comes to marketing. So welcome to the show. I'm so glad that you could join us.
I've got such a creaky chair, so I'm going to try and not move too much in it. Your microphone was crackling. Now it's perfect. My sheet was crackling. Now it's perfect, hopefully. So let's have 40 minutes of awesomeness.
Awesome. Yes, I'm ready for it as well. And I must admit, like we said earlier off camera, this is really just a casual show. It's a show that is real and authentic. There is no kind of editing that happens in this show. So whatever goes on here is pure golden diamonds. Let's go into this. All right, Mike. First of all, I just want my audience to really get to know you. Just a little bit of background. Who is Mark Sharman?
Who are we all really, Lucille? I mean, like, that sounds like the most Freudian, or I don't know, some other theoretical question that I've ever been asked. I just like making stories. I like telling narratives. I like putting content together. I'm obsessed with making people laugh or have some kind of emotional movement and emotive engagement. I'm just someone that never grew up and hope I never will.
Oh, that's fantastic, especially when it comes to what you do on a daily level. I mean, you need to actually tap into childlike innocence. And it creates phenomenal stories. And I mean, it's proof of it. The way that you actually address and attack your passion, your love, which is phenomenal. So let's jump into this, right? I've got the very first question, and this is really going to help small entrepreneurs as well as small business and influencers. So let's tap into that genius that is you. The very first question that I have on is that you've had so much success with taking various brands to market, right? We're talking Nando's, RocoMamas, always comes to mind when I think of Retroviral, when I think of you. What is that magic formula? How do you go viral?
You know, I think that the starting point is always remarkable content. And I think we've had a few good results this year, particularly with Creepy Crawly, now recently with First for Women, and even at the start of the year with Ryobi, with Kirsten Landman and her Dakar experience with our sports business, Retroactive. And I think that, you know, I was fortunate to spend a bit of time doing some stand-up comedy in a previous life. And it was always about finding a key insight or a premise. And I think that's what all of us as marketers are trying to do. We're trying to communicate with so many different people of so many different backgrounds, shapes, and sizes. And if we can tap into a truth It's like it's the success to observational humor. If you think about your favorite comedians, you think about Trevor Noah, think about Jerry Seinfeld, Chris Rock, etc. So much of their observational comedy is steeped in truth. And if you can tap into that and the thing that people can nod their heads to, that's when you're onto something that that speaks to the societal zeitgeist. And that's where we like to start. Insights, truths, and then we develop and craft the funny off the back of that. And sometimes the funny is South African funny, sometimes it's global funny, sometimes it's niche funny. And that's always the challenge. Like, humor is a very difficult thing to get right if you try too hard. So for me, I'm all about trying to find the simplicity within an idea, or find that little nugget of an idea that can make people nod along and eventually smile and laugh. And I just, especially in such a hectic year, I think that, going back to Creepy Crawly, is that, we watched My Octopus Teacher at home, and for me it was so flippin' cool, because it was like this dude and his underwater photography and the DOP work and all of that great stuff. So I really obsessed over the craft. And then my wife and my mother-in-law, like, that is so lame. Like, imagine you had a nervous breakdown and you wanted to go and swim with octopi instead of playing with your own kid. So they were like so cynical about it. And it just it was this perfect like juxtaposition of me and my like, oh my wow, that's so great, versus like the cynicism of 2020, like wrapped in one comment. And like for me, I get ideas in very different spaces. A lot of times my ideas come from just being in the shower or cycling and riding my bike. And I just thought, like, that's actually quite a funny construct if I was to like try and spoof something that's exploding and doing well, not just locally but internationally. And as Joburgers, we always like to take a little bit of a laugh and a dig at the Cape Townian counterparts. So I was chatting to a good friend of mine, Glenn Beedham and Pam, and we done some work already this year where we spoofed John Steenhuisen for Gumtree. And I said, Glenn, listen, bro, this Creepy Crawly opportunity here with My Octopus Teacher, we need to make My Creepy Teacher. And we bounced some WhatsApps and we had some scripts going, and sent me a version, and then I tweaked it. And then we pitched it to Creepy, because Glenn was actually in a commercial for Creepy a few years ago that we also made go viral when he was starting out. And we showed the trailer to the client, and we said we want to make a creepy version where we obviously put the creepy in place of the octopus. And from backwards and forwards, and then Glenn sending me voice notes of like, I just so magical. And like they just trusted us, because fortunately, when I get a gut feel on something, and a lot of clients can buy into that and they can believe in that. And it goes back to narratives and storytelling. Like, as a startup or an SME, what is your story? What is the thing that you're getting out there around the world? And think about it, like, as a small business, no one knows your business. They know you as a person. And for me, like, investors will always tell you your business shouldn't become key man dependent or key woman dependent, but it has to be from a storytelling perspective. People buy into people. So think about Zuckerberg, think about Dorsey, think about all of those characters that started really successful startups. Like, people bought into the individual first, and then grew out from there. The Creepy Crawly story went from concept to creation, concept to virality in like 96 hours, and it just exploded, and millions of views, 5 million plus views. We reached like 2 billion people with all the shares. It was shared on Mexican sites, European sites. It was spoken about on an Australian podcast, like a mom's podcast. It was wild. And even Craig Foster's wife was tweeting about how rad it was, and people that were involved in their production, they appreciated the humor behind it. And I think that we actually helped drive more interest in My Octopus Teachers. I think everybody won. It was a vibe.
Yeah, that's it. I love the fact that you brought in humor. And you know what? This is something that everybody can learn from, is building a story, whether you're in the shower or whether you're just chilling, and an idea starts to come about and you bounce it off with everybody else. It makes a huge difference when you can start to kind of have that support system where you are bouncing off ideas and creating this thereof. I think it also helps a huge, because you're also humorous in the way that you actually approach story as well. So that also accounts for a lot of the adverts that you do put together. All right, everybody, a warm welcome to you. If you've just popped on, I do see we've got a couple of new people on. A warm welcome. You're watching Drive Your Business Livestream with myself, Lucille Devine, and my guest this morning is Mike Sharman, and he's from Retroviral. We're talking about crafting digital virality, especially in the age. It's not only that you're making that noise, you have to get noticed. And one of the ways that Mike was chatting about is key insights. If you have a key insight, is a problem or a pain point that most of your customers are going through, or even a collective, whether we're going through it globally, tap into that. And when you tap into that truth, what starts to happen is you start to create and craft this idea, this storyline, your brand. So I think that's beautifully put together. If you want to ask a question or just say hi and acknowledge, go ahead and do that. Comment below in the comment section. You can, we will acknowledge you, and you can also ask a question. This is totally interactive. You want to tap into the genius that is Mike right now is the perfect time to do that. Okay, so Mike, it's very phenomenal. And I want to just commend you and your team with regards to coming up with really out of the box, and I hate using that word, but really kind of a genius way of getting. It's so true. It's so true. But I think the way that you approach things, and that is definitely that genius mind. And that genius mind taps into humor, but not only that, is it that childlike play, which I absolutely love. That's another question that I have for you. In your opinion, what is the best way for going to market?
I'm definitely going to get you to do one of those LinkedIn recommendations. You've called me a genius at least 3 times. I mean, my mother will be very proud.
Well, does your mother read your LinkedIn bio? That's the difference.
She's about to now. Like, everyone's about to read it once you do me a recommendation. Okay, sorry. Let me listen to a question and read it. Word. I think I've got adult ADD. No one's just known yet.
But that also adds to the flavor of the genius mind as well. So, well, there you go. I'll coin that phrase for you. All right. So, what in your opinion is the best way to go to market, Mike? Especially, if you're an entrepreneur, an influencer, or a small business owner. This is one of the things that I get asked all the time. Like, how do I go to market? I've done this. I'm trying to make this. Nobody likes my stuff. Nobody engages. I can't convert. What is the best way for a person to do that?
For me, I feel like your friends and family are your best starting point. And that's why, even nowadays, Facebook is still so important, because perception-wise, those closest to you are always going to be the people that support you first, whether you are writing a book, a blog, launching a product or a service. It's like telling that close group of friends. I think there was a stat that the average person has about 187 Facebook connections. And of those 187 people, even if your content is only being served to 10% of those, so let's call it 20 people, of those, there's at least 1 or 2 customers within that base that exist within your audience. And I think recently we launched a product called MatchKit to help athletes better commercialize their careers. And it was obviously accelerated by lockdown. So we went from domain registration to MVP in 3 months. And the initial thinking was, let's go down a drip strategy. Let's extend it out over 2020. It's going to be difficult to get adoption, especially if we're asking for a paid software as a service product to go to market. And I said, why would I do anything different from how I would launch another brand effort? Sure, I don't have the budget that I would have working for one of my brand clients, but let's go to market and let's just tell the world, and let's leverage that network that is the mouthpiece for dissemination. So for me, I always put on almost like a PR, a traditional and digital media hat. So who are the people that are influential within my network that I can speak to, that can speak from one to many? And the default for me and my thinking was always journalists. So which journalists are going to be interested in my story? Which publications are relevant to our product? So when it came to MatchKit, that's all about tech, it's about sports, about athletes. And from there, we set up a virtual press conference similar to this kind of tech that we're using today. And in South Africa, we invited the the sports media, because it's quite a small, close-knit community in South Africa because of the size of our media landscape. And then internationally, we targeted just rugby writers because Brian Habana is one of our co-founders. So by using Brian's name, leveraging his rugby celebrity, and targeting purely rugby writers around the globe, we've been able to gain traction in markets such as Uruguay and other parts of South America like Paraguay, Chile, Brazil, because Brian is basically a god in those markets. Sure, in the US market where rugby isn't such a massive deal, Brian is not necessarily going to create as much impact. So it's always like play to the strengths of what you can leverage. So what network ability do you have? Is it Facebook? Is it Twitter? Is it LinkedIn? Is it Instagram? Where do your potential purchasers or customers live? And then who are those other potential mouthpieces that you can engage with? For me, I think about journalists, I think about influencers, I think about DJs, I think about people that have relevance to your product, business, or service, and how can you work with them or offer them? Sometimes it's trials, sometimes it's like freebies, sometimes it's paid for if you have budget. But for me, the world is generally quite helpful and supportive, especially with your being a small business or an SME. And sometimes we just have to ask. I mean, because the worst that can happen is someone can say no. And I think that's the one thing that I've always learned through the various jobs that I've had. I've been a telemarketer. I've been a shop assistant for these promotions where you spray fragrances on people's little white pieces of paper.
Oh no!
So
genius there.
So there's a lot of those tactics that I've been involved in from like a student to just make money, and that sort of stuff gives you a thick skin, and like the more no's you get, you'll eventually get to a yes, because it's just a numbers game.
Yeah. I absolutely agree. And also that you had that in your experience also allowed you to show up in the manner and the way that you're doing right now. I think that's phenomenal. Okay, let's just go over that. One of the main strategies is to use your network, identify their target audience, because that's one of the main things where a lot of entrepreneurs, beg your pardon, business owners as well as influencers, they miss the mark totally when it comes to that. They don't identify the right target audience or who they want to align themselves with. And when it comes to that, basic collaboration in your network, and collaborating with other people will also help you to not only position but go to market faster, because you utilize those people's networks as well, which is a brilliant way to actually go to market. So that's genius, right?
the best
Any other advice that you would give us?
The best soundbite that I picked up from podcasts that I listened to during lockdown, I think it was Tim Ferriss. I keep quoting it as Tim Ferriss. I don't know if it is, but we'll just roll with that. And he said that your net worth.
Okay, go for it.
He said your network is your net worth, and I think that's a really great and profound statement. And that's connecting the dots is the thing that helps me achieve success. Like the whole of the universe is just a game of connect the dots, really.
Yeah, it's true, and it's a powerful way to actually approach, because again, when you are networking and aligning your brand with someone else, what it does is it gives people perception that you're on that same level, and that's something that we talk about in the Rise of the New Media Influencer with one of my guests, Field. We go about collaborating with other brands, and then we set them on the same standard. So not only are you utilizing the network, but you are perceived in the market as having that same level, that same standard, and same value. So I think that's beautiful. Thanks for sharing that with us. Awesome. Okay, so the other concept you were talking about, as we started to chat about a little bit, was around a brand story. One of the aspects that I also feel like we don't tap into this enough. And I mean, just our conversation this morning, from when you and I were even off camera and we connected, there was a story that you began with. There was a story that I also shared with you when it comes to creating people to really think and empower and educate themselves when it comes to these kinds of shows. And how you were saying, how you started with Retroviral and where you even began during the show as well. These are all unique stories. And I love the fact that you've already mentioned when you're creating these stories is to set them apart, own them and develop them as the entrepreneur, the small business, but incorporate the broader story. So how do we go about actually crafting a viral brand story? What is the formula we should use? What should we look at there?
So a really great template is the hero's journey. And what the hero's journey really talks about is how you have peaks and troughs in your narrative. You have moments when the hero fails. You have these moments when you've come back to defeat great odds. And if you think about most of the challenger brands that have launched in the world, whether it be Apple, whether it be Virgin, there's always some kind of story and like success against adversity. And when you actually think about your own story, like what's the story that you'd love to read about your own business or your own journey on like the front page of the Sunday Times? Like how would you want that story to be told, or the GQ or the Women's Health or whatever the magazine is that resonates with you and your audience? Like what would you like that story headline to say? And what aspects of your journey would you like people to know? Because we're naturally supportive of the underdog. And that's why when you are a startup, you are naturally an underdog. And there's a very good chance that you are a challenger brand, because what you're bringing to market is a challenge to what exists out there, or a challenge to what doesn't exist out there. So it's very important to think about those key stories. I mean, for me, like my journey is really a mixed bag of things, of everything from, like I said, being a telemarketer during my studies and a promoter, to saving up and going to Hollywood and wanting to be a stand-up comedian and wanting to get into, proper storytelling and documentary filmmaking, and working in PR, winning a fancy dress competition, working in London for 2 years, becoming obsessed with the internet and social media, reading tweets on the tube, writing ideas around what Retroviral would be as a hybrid digital PR and activation kind of agency back in 2009. Like for me, I'm not a business plan fan. I'm anti-business plan, because you don't know how people are going to respond to your product or service. You have to get it to market. I'm obsessed with bootstrapping businesses and not obsessing over fundraising. Like if you can develop a thought or a business that's generating revenue, that's going to add value to the world. Silicon Valley has presented us with so many lies about raising funds being worth $1 billion. And those stories are such anomalies. Whereas if you're going to start a business, what's the way that you're going to generate cash? Because cash and cash flow thereof is the number one success or failure of a business. If like cash flow, if you don't have the cash flow, you're dead in the water.
Yeah, very true with regards to that, Mike. I love the fact that you're also saying, crafting that story starts with that hero's journey. What are those things and different situations, that dark side that you've actually gone through where you've gained experience, because those types of points actually teach you something. And not only that, it also creates that success plan. And even if you start out and you're starting from ground zero, that is a story in its own. Why did you develop that? What is the passion or the purpose behind that business, which I think is so fundamental. The other thing that is quite relevant that I'd like to bring up is identifying that archetype, brand archetype, where you fit in. And I think that is exactly what we're going to talk about a little bit more. But I see that we've got a couple of comments. I'm going to stick them up on the screen so that we also just give acknowledgement to our audience. Thank you so much for taking part, everybody. I really appreciate you. We've got Gavin on line. He says, to market a brand or product, to create the right language, logo, tagline, colors, and fonts, then make sure you are consistently in the public eye through social media, PR, and marketing. And I agree with Mike, align your brand with an influencer or a celebrity. Yeah, that's one of the key factors that you can start to do to employ in your business. So yes, I absolutely agree with you, Gavin. Thanks for popping past. It's awesome. But we've got somebody else that is online, also just giving the heads up. There is Amanda. Okay, Amanda is one of the students that I had the privilege of training in the Digify Pro course. And Amanda says, so informative. A couple of months I spent at Retroviral were one of the best in my career. Thank you so much for this, Mama Lou. My pleasure. And I'm sure you know Mike as well, because he's phenomenal. And again, like I'm I'm going to have to hashtag that word when it comes to Mark now. He is pure genius, and the way that he approaches marketing and go-to-market strategies, which is awesome. I see that we've got Haiti Joy in the house. She's just popping past. Thank you so much, Haiti. You are such a superstar. Haiti is an entrepreneur in her own right. She owns Haiti Joy's shop, and she is a fashion designer, a phenomenal entrepreneur, and also a thought leader of note. Good morning. Thank you. I'm so glad you're loving this. It's awesome information, golden nugget stuff, this interview today, so which is awesome. And then we got Gavin again. I always ask my clients in our first meeting, what is our story? People buy into people. Oh, that is beautifully put. So if there is a human being behind a successful brand that has rags richer story, it works to win over a possible client. Everyone has a story to tell. Fantastic, Gavin. And yes, absolutely agree with you when it comes to that as well. So if you are just popping past, you are watching you Drive Your Business, a live stream with myself, Lucille Devine. My special guest this morning is Mike Sharman. He is from Retroviral, and we're talking right now about a brand story. How do you craft that story? What should you start to put in? And a couple of things that we've already mentioned is the hero's journey. Mike has said, somehow craft that and go and have a look at the hero's journey, which I'm sure you can go and Google as well. Create that success formula, that success story around who you are. If you are the underdog or you've just started your business, right now you have a story. Why did you start that business? What is that purpose, that passion? Bring all of those elements into it as well. And then identify what your brand archetype is. How do you want to show up in the actual digital or in front of your clients? Who are you here to serve? What are their pain points as well? Any other tips that you can give us, Mark, around going and crafting that brand story?
The story never sleeps. We have to like basically live, sleep, and eat it. And I think that I was actually perusing some tweets yesterday about developing a personal brand. And the thing is, like, for me, it's always been interesting because in those early days of Twitter, I mean, I was on Twitter since like 2008, and what I always found so fascinating is like people were surprised when they met me, one, how tall I was, because they didn't realize how tall I was when they saw my tiny little avatar. But secondly, it was like people were surprised that I was exactly in real life like how I was online. And I think at that time, so many people were building these facades of like cool kid or like mysterious or like badass. Like these are the archetypes that they were crafting for themselves within their own Twitter accounts. And when you actually met them in person, because there were a whole bunch of networking events and meetups and that kind of thing, and so many people were incongruous with their online personas. And I think what allowed me to create like that almost magnetism was around the fact that I was authentic to who I tweeted myself as. I wasn't putting on a persona. I wasn't putting on a facade. And that's the thing, right? Is like they will gravitate to your authentic personality. Like using golf as an example, like, you know, Ricky Fowler dresses loud and vibrantly, and that's his thing, you know, whereas someone like Bryson DeChambeau, he's out there swinging 200-mile-an-hour drives and like letting his science and his muscle do the talking. So, and then you got like Dustin Johnson, guy from the South, you know, like very humble, and then even had a shed a tear the other day winning the Masters. But we all gravitate to these personas in very different ways. Drive to Survive on Netflix has taught us that, you know, you can actually buy into a driver and then be interested in what the impact is on racing. It's the best thing that Formula One could have ever done. And all of these stories, Save the Last Dance. I keep using sports analogies because these are all the shows that I'm busy watching online myself. But I think it's fascinating. Okay. Like we buy into the people, then we expand into the brand. So like, who are you? What position are you taking? And how are you being true to your authentic self? You know.
Yeah. Yeah, and I do think that your brand story does tend to evolve as the brand starts to evolve, so your changes as well. And it can hook directly into your consumer, because building a story around your consumer, your audience, and creating them as the hero also creates a whole another avenue of story as well. So that's great advice there. Thanks, Mark. Okay, I've got another question that, again, this is something it comes up quite often when it comes to building a business. And I'd like to ask you, why and how should entrepreneurs, small businesses, and influencers use story now online? If they have now, they've gone through, they've kind of crafted a story, how do they use that story now online?
Yeah, I mean, I think I actually just wanted to add one more point to your previous question before we moved on. But I thought about the importance of, continuity and consistency, and I think that kind of leads into this question in particular, because I think that if you are constantly putting out the kinds of messaging and knowing what you are, like, it's a very difficult thing to do. It's a very difficult thing to know what you are and what you aren't, because then you have the ability to really cover your blind sides. Also, it allows you to know what type of customers are relevant for you as a business. Like for us, we are a challenger agency. We work best with challenger brands. And over the last 3 or 4 years, the more we've gravitated towards those brands that are not necessarily number 1 or number 2 in the market. Sometimes they're number 3 and number 4. Like, they have smaller budgets than their larger competitors. So they also have to take a bit of a risk. And we're a really good complementary risk partner to that. And I think that when you know what you aren't, it can really help to define what you are, and it can help to set your business out on the trajectory to get and generate much more success. And then obviously taking that into consideration, why and how should entrepreneurs, small businesses, or influencers use this tactic online? For me, I used to get a lot of interest from speaking gigs when I first started my business. So we had very interesting case studies. We were very lucky to have worked on Miller for Rock the Boat, and then Nando's in our first year of creating Retroviral. And I was able to use the case studies of the work that we were putting out there to generate more interest and attract more work. So I would always go and I would encourage event organizers who had audiences that were marketing or communications people, so that I could then get on stage so I could tell my story. For me, like, your brand evangelism comes to the fore when you have platforms that you can speak on. And sometimes those platforms are chatting to Lucille Devine. Sometimes those platforms are heavy chef stages. Sometimes they're IMC conferences. So for me, like, conferences and speaking opportunities are always very important, because you get your viewpoint out there. And I mean, even on this chat today, I can't see how many people are dialed in. I mean, there could be 5, there could be 20, there could be 50. And the reality is that sometimes you'll meet someone where one thing you say resonates with that, and that even if those people who are on the call aren't necessarily your target market, they will think about you, will connect the dots for you and say, oh, I heard this genius guy talk the other day, and he's pretty relevant, you know. So I think, like, for me, Twitter has been the greatest form of new business generation for me. LinkedIn, writing a book, like Rich Mulholland said to me, it's the best business card you'll ever have. And 3 years ago, I wrote The Best Dick, and it continues to bring in leads, you know. And I'm busy working on my next book, and between raising toddlers and launching startups and, I don't know, just dealing with my adult ADD. But yeah, I think, like, for me, PR and word of mouth spread is my form of new business generation. And I think that I'm very fortunate that and I've been able to craft a personal brand that allows me to talk on the internet, that allows me to film video or write thought opinion pieces or write for magazines and newspapers. And for me, like, I eat my own dog food on a daily basis, because digital PR is my execution point, and I execute that with my own personal branding. So I think, for your question, a very roundabout way is like, what are you selling? Or if you're a videographer, let your videos do the talking. If you're a cook, do content that shows your amazing recipes. You know, like, I think it's almost playing to the strength of what the thing is. Let your work, let your craft do the talking. For us, case studies are very important. We have to brag about our work that we're currently doing so that we can attract future work. So it's a difficult one, especially for introverts, because the humble brag is an art, and sometimes you walk the tightrope of being a douche. And at times, I think I can be like Marmite. So I think that's the challenge to navigate. But fortunately, my wife keeps me on the straight and narrow, and punches me in the face when I'm with emojis, when I'm stepping out of line and becoming an arrogant
Okay, let's
knob.
not go down this road. Yeah. Let's not go down the abuse road at all, please. We don't want to hear those intimate conversations and behaviors at all.
With emojis. I said with emojis, not with real fists.
Okay. All right. So somebody else that absolutely, I believe, eats their own dog food is Haley Joy. And I just want to pop up her little comment down below. She says, yep, I'm the perfect client avatar. I'm a genuine plus size woman. Designing clothes for other plus size women. So she's walking her talk. And that's what I absolutely love about Haley Joy. Is she's an entrepreneur that encompasses and really walks her talk. She does eat her dog food every, and that is just typical of exactly what we're saying here. And that's exactly what Mike's Genius is saying to you right now, is walk that talk, be a part of it, eat that dog food. If you're going to expect your clients to do that, you do the same thing as well. And crafting that story does entail all of those aspects. So we've got Gavin also just commenting with regards to what we're talking about right now. I'm going to pop that up on the screen. And it says there are amazing ways to tell a story. I couldn't agree more, Gavin. You can create and edit a short video on your smartphone. Yes, absolutely. And it's so quick and easy. We can launch online chat show, and because of the fact that show is quirky and tongue-in-cheek, we created a funny video. Yes, and it takes small things like that, especially when you're creating content. I mean, it's very quick, it's very fast, it's very simple. A lot of people are sick and tired of the edited versions. That's why I run the show, because it's unedited, it's real, it's in your face, it happens on the fly. And yeah, definitely, that's something that you need to consider when you are crafting your brand story as well. And we've got one more comment here from Gavin. Let's pop that up on the screen just to end that off. Let your craft do the talking. Mark, yes. So you see, I'm not the only one who thinks you're genius there, Mark.
Gavin is the MVP of the day with all these comments coming through. Well done, Gavin.
I could see. He's crafting his own brand story right now on my timeline, which is awesome. Yeah, and that's exactly what we're talking about, opportunities. So whether you're speaking at various gigs or whether you're aligning yourself to your network that can actually help you connect those dots. As Mark is saying, that's one of the key factors that actually sets him apart. And that's how he's grown his business, is being at those spaces, creating the opportunity, connecting with people who connect him even further, which is fantastic. Very straight up advice here, really key when we talk about going to market and creating viability around your own business. Okay, so if you've just joined us, I do see that we've got two more people that have popped on. A warm welcome to you. We are really well into this discussion. We're talking to Mike Sharman from Retroviral. We're talking all around creating and crafting digital virality out online. And it's such an important part of your business. We're talking about a brand story and how to craft that. What goes into a brand story? What should you look at? One of the key things that Mark did drop here was that hero's journey. I want you to go and search for that out online, because that also will help you to really go through that process of crafting your own story. Whether you're an influencer, an entrepreneur, or a small business owner, you have to have that story. And the way that you position that story out online is you talk about it. Tell the people why you are in business, what started it, what's your passion, what's your purpose. As soon as you start to stand for something, people want to get behind you. It's almost like that evangelistic kind of approach. And people do that. They buy into the why that you're selling, and they then start to actually support you. And that's one of the key factors that started this show. I mean, I started because I saw a need in the market. There was a gap for entrepreneurs that didn't want to go live on their own. So I created a safety space where I interview them and they showcase their business. They showcase their brand stories. And I helped them to craft that story before we even went online. So again, that's something different. That's my why. And a lot of people got behind me. And actually, they wanted to appear on my show. That is how I'm creating those networks, those little points of creating and making it go viral. So those are the types of things that you should be focusing on. now more than ever as you go and start your journey on the digital and social media space. All right, do you want to add anything there, Mike, before we head on to the next question?
No, I think you nailed it. I think let's dive straight in.
Yeah, we're also very short of time here as well. Okay, so I'm going to dive into the last question. And this is something that I often read about you, whether it's on blogs or whether it's videos I'm watching. You always are sharing this. You actually have taken this particular formula and you have made it a tagline within your own business. So can you talk to us about those 3 C's and what they mean? What is that, and how do you use that as a cornerstone to your success out online?
Yeah, I think, it's like really an oversimplification of our kind of ethos is, and going back to the start of today's conversation, is the first C is around remarkable content. If your content isn't remarkable, nothing's ever going to happen with it. Old school advertising thinking is that you make a TV ad, you give it to the media buyer, and then it does its thing. Whereas with us, we like to consider that whole journey of where the content goes. So content can be remarkable as a video. It can be a white paper. I mean, PwC puts out a white paper every year around the future of digital, and that's an incredible sticky piece of content that I'm always excited to read about because it kind of fuels my insights around trends and what's happening across the African continent in terms of content. So don't get hung up on it just having to be video. It can be a white paper. It can be a GIF. It can be a boomerang. All those kinds of things. And then once you take that remarkable piece of content, you then have to seed it to the relevant community. And that community is your existing owned platform people and those who may be your Facebook fans, your Twitter followers, your Instagram followers, etc. And when you pair those 2 things together, that's the initial starting point. You also then have to think about the community outside of your existing fans and into your actual target market and your greater total addressable market. So from there, when you pair those 2 things together, that's when you start that interaction point. And sure, there's like a whole bunch of stuff that goes into that. There's paid media, there's earned media, there's shared, there's owned, there's all this stuff, there's the PR, all that stuff that comes with it. But ultimately, the oversimplification is remarkable content, seed it to the right community. That's when you have the ability to impact at a commercial level or commercial results to occur. And the commercial results can be sales, they can be downloads, they can be subscriptions, they can be providing an email address. So I think that's kind of how we like to approach all the work that we're involved in. All work that we do has 4 pillars: strategy, content creation, content dissemination, and reporting, and underlined here by the 3 C's. And that's kind of where we start creating our viral science in an essence of mass distribution and mass dissemination.
Okay, fantastic. And we're going to talk a little bit before we go about a current campaign that you're running. But before we do that, I just want to remind the audience to please, if you feel that this video holds a lot of value, you know of an entrepreneur, an influencer, or a small business owner that can do with this type of knowledge, I want you to go ahead right now, tag people down below in the comment section, and just address their and gain their actual attention to this video. It'll help them to really define how they should be going to market using digital and social media. We've dropped a ton of different nuggets in this video series, so please go ahead and do that now. If you don't want to do it on a public forum, can I please ask you to go ahead and share this video? Bottom right hand corner is the share icon. It's that little arrow out. Go ahead and share with other people in your network. You can go and share it on your wall or send a direct message to whoever needs this video. The more we can share and the more people understand how to go to market effectively, absolutely is going to help us build our economy. And I stand for that. So let's share. If you want to, go and do it on a public forum, or I'll share icon down below, whether you're on Facebook or whether you're on YouTube as well. The other thing that I'd like you to do, if you're going to be watching the replay and you're watching that right now, I want you to go put the hashtag replay and just go ask a question or go and just say hi, just so that I can also monitor everything on a big data space. It allows me to measure the impact of this video that we've just done with Mike. and actually just monitor that and get in front of the right audience as well. So if you do that for me right now, I'd really appreciate that. Okay, so Mike, we're going to go into our last section, and I really want to ask about your current campaign that you have launched. We chatted very briefly about it off camera just before we came on, and that is the First for Women Stand Up campaign. Talk to us a little bit around that, and how can we get involved and support this campaign going forward?
Yeah, thanks. I mean, it's been quite a whirlwind past month. I mean, we were briefed to come up with a 16 days of activism against gender-based violence campaign for First for Women. And like I said, it's like my brain kind of works in these weird dot connecting kind of spaces. And the insight for me was that, you know, the most popular genre of music on the planet is hip hop. And hip hop is an interesting one because obviously there's woman objectification and there's misogyny and all kinds of references that aren't great, especially for all the problems that we face as a nation. The one thing that I did find quite interesting, like when you think about a lot of the most popular hip hop songs in the world over the years, like think about Jay-Z and Hard Knock Life and the juxtaposition between his rap and the sample of those kids singing the Annie chorus, you know, something that almost, it puts this innocence of youth with like the realities of the rawness of hip hop with it. And it reminded me of a song that I learned at primary school, and it was this: my body's nobody's body but mine. You run your own body, let me run mine. And I just always found like that hook was very powerful, and I started doing a bit more research. And the guy who wrote it, his name's Peter Alsop. He lives in Topanga Canyon in Hollywood, and he's had a string of hits, writing songs, everything from like absent fathers to this sexual abuse kind of material. And there's so many psychologists around the world that have actually credited his songs with helping break down barriers when talking to kids and even adults about abuse. And I just really liked the mix, and like I said earlier, the juxtaposition between the innocence of the childlike chorus with the prominent and very powerful lyrics. So I got hold of Peter. He's 74 years old now. Got hold of him on his landline, and he gave me permission to sample his track, and worked with Garth Barnes from Tiger Fight and his partner Chris, and they used that as the sample and as the hook. And then within a matter of days, they'd written a pilot track, which we got approval of. And then I reached out to Lyra's management, Juliet Harding from Good Luck, who's a friend of mine, and then Garth pulled in Gigi Lemaine, who's a rapper from Soweto, and Marashan, who is ex-Jamali, and we really pulled together this, like, the Avengers of women artists in South Africa. And within a week, we'd recorded this track. We shot a music video, and then a week ago, 10 days ago, we went live, and it's been phenomenal. I mean, 24 stations across the country have played the track. The music video is on MTV at the moment. Every proceed of streams, downloads, needle time goes to the First for Women Foundation to fight women abuse. And yeah, I mean, the more people spread that message, the more that download and stream, ditto.fm/mybodystandup. And yeah, the more you stream, the more lives we potentially save. And First for Women has been donating money to causes since 2005. So it's not just a gimmick for a campaign. They've raised over more than 81 million rand, and they've saved more than 90,000 women's lives in the country. So, you know, they eat their dog food. They are First for Women. They back women initiatives. They are committed to almost eradicating GBV. It's a huge issue. And yeah, it's a project that's really close to my heart. And I'm so stoked to see it getting such traction. It's already had like more than 5,000 streams on the various playlists. And I hope that it can make it onto the charts of our top radio stations so that more and more people spread the news. So come 3 months' time, 6 months' time, we'll have a huge check to go towards the First for Women Foundation project. So I'm absolutely spent for 2020. I'm looking to go to a mountain somewhere and have a sleep and just be off the grid and be offline. And it's been absolutely awesome to be on your show. So thank you for having me.
Only a pleasure. And thanks for sharing that awesome campaign with us. This is something we can all get behind. as a woman that has myself, I also support a lot of women entrepreneurs who've come through this. Myself, I have also come through quite a bit of toxic relationships and abuse. I absolutely love what you're standing for, and I love the fact that you've shared that story right here on my station. So, Mike, thank you so much. Audience, it is that time. We're going to say goodbye. I'd like to thank each and every one of you who took the time and stayed with us through the show. It has been an absolutely exciting one today. And again, go and share this video if you found any value in it. Go and share it. You can either tag people in the actual comment section below, or you can go and share it out on your network or send it via a message as well. This is something powerful that I absolutely want to get out there. This helps to sustain our country. Not only that, entrepreneurs actually step up, be educated, and get out there and start to build their business. So thank you for taking the time out today. Mike, once again, thank you. I'm going to leave you just for a quick, very kind of synopsis as you were talking about today. What should entrepreneurs, small business owners, and influencers really focus on when it comes to taking their business viral?
Don't let the fears of financial failure cripple you, and back yourself. Always back yourself, because if you don't back yourself, people won't be confident enough to invest in your product, business, or service. Go out there, eat your dog food, be epic, tell your story, and just, you're going to do it. Like, why do you want to be employed? How boring.
Beautiful. You heard it from the genius himself, Mike. Thank you so much, everybody. See you next week. Cheers. Bye. Okay, Mike, you can just stay on there. I'm just going to chat to you quickly.